Hey everybody, welcome to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's Conversations at Home. I'm Jim Halterman from TV Guide Magazine. Before we get started, I want to tell you a little bit about the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's COVID-19 Relief Fund that supports SAG-AFTRA performers who are in urgent need as the pandemic continues. Since March of 2020, the foundation has given over $6.1 million in aid to 6,600 performers and families facing extreme hardship. If you are a SAG-AFTRA member and you need help, please ask. If you are able to support our community in this crucial effort, please give. Information can be found in the description of this video. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce the wonderful cast of the trippy star series American Gods, which is currently airing its third season every Sunday night. I've talked to most of you guys before, so you know I've been a fan since day one. And I have to say, season 3 has just been so exciting and good, and just feels really grounded, I feel, in a way. And I was curious to get your take on that. I know there's a new showrunner. I've seen some different writers on the show. Can you guys talk about that a little bit? Ricky, if you want to lead that part of it off.
Yeah, for me, it really is a true return to form. What I found fascinating this season, since I've been watching the episodes myself, is the communication, the dynamics. I feel there's more connection between the characters this season. I felt in season 2 there was a lot of monologues and people kind of speak at each other. But season 3, you're seeing these characters actually connect because they're speaking to each other and they're listening, and you're actually seeing these conversations, which I feel grounds the show more. So even though you're talking about fantastical, magical things, because you're actually having real conversations, which have been worked on by Chick Egley and Neil Gaiman this season, our incredible writing room, I feel it's more real and more relatable to an audience, which makes you care more about the characters. I just watched a couple of episodes, and I just love the hypocrisy between some of the characters, where you have Saleem and Laura preaching relationship advice about saying to let go, but still holding on to their own kind of losses and crazy things. And it's hilarious. And then all these new kind of dynamics that come and go this season with, for myself personally, Shadow and Tech Boy. We kind of have a moment. Then we've got Shadow and Billquiz, and then the new relationship with Cordelia, who's now involved with Wednesday, who I get to kind of have fun again as well. And it's the first kind of season where I've really got to work with everyone. And I think the audience is going to really enjoy all those new dynamics and relationships and how they work and intertwine and push this story through for the rest of the season.
Anyone else want to add to that?
Well, I was thinking, if I may jump in there, just to say that it's never a show that was going to be the same every year, because it's not a book, a normal novel anyway. It's a book of ideas. So the fact that, it's common knowledge, I think, series 1 was a little overpraised, series 2 was a little undervalued, and season 3 is coming back to something else. How people enjoy it. It's very different again. Back in Lakeside, different dynamics, but that's part of what the show has become. It's everybody's got their own possessive idea about what this show should be, because it was a big thing on social media when it first started. But no, it's just got some very good actors, got some wacky ideas in it. Hope everybody has a good time, and who knows, whatever, enjoy. It's only TV.
A lot of fun.
Oh yeah, no, I don't minimize that. I'm saying, but in the end of it, it's meant to entertain. I think it has, and to cause so much controversy last year, some of it was, not required, or some of it was underreported. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Keeps the show in the mind's eye, and people now refer back to, oh, this was this and this was that, and they're obsessive about it. But that's great. Let them be obsessive. We just try and feed it out there too.
Yeah. Anyone else want to add? Good. Okay. All right. It's all good. So Ricky, let's talk about Shadow a little bit. We talk about him fighting his destiny, and he doesn't want what the world seems to be, and Wednesday's leading him towards. Where do we see that go moving forward this season? He's still kind of fighting it, but everybody keeps mentioning this word destiny.
Yeah, he's kind of we started the season. He's in hiding. He's grown his hair out, his beard out. He's changed his name to Mike Ainsel. He's fighting that destiny. He's trying to push back from the gods. He's kind of trying to move on. He's trying to change. It's even with the physical appearance, it's a physical kind of departure from that shackles of prison where every inmate looks the same and you're told to be a certain way. And the world keeps trying to define Shadow. And I think his season is going to be looking within to define himself. You know, everyone's telling him who he is and what he needs to be, where I feel this season he just needs to kind of look inside and figure out who he is and what kind of person he needs to he's going to be moving forward. Obviously, he's been given the information that Wednesday's his father, which has thrown up a whole kind of mystical mess as what does that make Shadow? You know, he's kind of a demigod, I guess. And so what does that mean for him? And then what kind of God does he want to be moving forward? And there's a lot of kind of elements that are going to be coming in and trying to influence him this season. And it's kind of which way does he kind of sway, and how does he allow them to influence him into becoming the Shadow that we would want him to become, or the Shadow that he could possibly become.
Does the question ever come up what kind of God he could be? Because he doesn't necessarily have to follow in Odin's footsteps. He could kind of take his own path as a god, or does that really play into the story?
It's, for me, I kind of liken it to the Superman story. You know, if Superman wasn't raised by the Kents, what kind of Superman would we have had? And Shadow was very much raised by his mother, who was all light and love. And when she passed at 15, when he was 15 from cancer, that's when he was kind of introduced to the rest of the world and the kind of darkness. And I just feel that if maybe he had been raised by Wednesday, you'd have a very different Shadow already at the moment. So he's a very good person. He's got this kind of moral compass.
Raised by Wednesday?
Hey, Dad.
Raised by Wednesday? Oh, yeah, he would be a great dad. A great stay-at-home dad. Oh, I'll be there for you, kid.
Exactly. He never remembers my birthday.
And you also married the wrong woman, right, Emily?
Well,
Yeah.
we had some good moments. Laura, I give good hugs.
I love Laura. Laura should be with Wednesday, and Laura the same. That's why she hates it.
There you go.
But yeah, so but you have to remember, at the end of the day, I think everyone has a piece of each parent in them. And so he is Wednesday's child, and there will be a bit of Wednesday in there. And it's whether or not Wednesday can unlock that.
Wednesday's child is not. What is Wednesday's child full
Full
of?
of woe. That's the day I was born.
It's full of what?
That's full of woe.
There you go.
Full of woe.
You're only as happy as your unhappiest kid. You know that.
Oh, yeah.
That's good. Okay. I could just let you guys go for 40 minutes. And
So
just
he's
sit
up for
back.
grabs, basically. Shadow's up for grabs.
Okay, got it. Ian, let me ask you, Wednesday doesn't have Shadow by his side this season, at least at the start of the season. Does he need him to help him, or does he also just want his son close, or is it a little
Keeps
bit of both?
Close, but he keeps trying to say something, and every time he says, "You get it." Shadow still hasn't got it after 3 years. You think it's like a person saying, win the lottery, and God says, "Will you, help me a little, buy a ticket? Would you?" It's like it's the same with Shadow. It's like saying,
It would be a
"I'll give
very
you love."
short
Like Shadow
story
keeps
if I
saying,
figured it
"Who
out."
am I really? Who am I? What?" No, I mean, this is the nature of the book, but it's the ideas of what he is in his relationship with Emily and what they've done. The various showrunners have tried to eke out. I mean, the characters are very, we keep talking about going to the book. I mean, Lakeside, the setting is interesting, but the rest of it isn't the same, which is good. But we're making, we're using the book as a blueprint. I mean, let's talk about, I'm off busying himself with a war, and trying to, whatever that means. I mean, trying to raise money. Wednesday's a con man, and he'll keep back. He wants Shadow under his thumb, but it's the other. I like the dynamic with he knows that Emily's coming back for something. He knows that the shape-shifting genius of Mr. World, which has changed now. I mean, that's also been dynamic has been adapted through the book. And Omid's character is growing up again. He's looking for the Jinn to come back. But you should talk to them about that.
I will. We're going to get to all that.
I just don't. Our dynamic is different. And now it's kind of saying. It's all out this year. It's like saying, you do get it. I've left you alone. But there's also another secret in Lakeside, which is interesting, which the audience doesn't know. Because the audience obviously will say, what the hell is he doing in Lakeside? But that's another story.
Exactly. Well, before I go to everybody else, I wanted to ask you, the last episode that aired, I believe, is when we saw Blythe Danner for the first time, who's wonderful. Yeah, but we also, I feel like we get to see a different side of Wednesday with her because she means something to him. Can you kind of talk about that and where that goes throughout the rest of the season?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, he thinks she owns the place, which should give you an idea of where Wednesday's really at, which the old girl's got a bit of money as well, you know what I mean? It goes along with that. I mean, so it's a battle between Wednesdays. Yeah, he loved her, but Wednesday, as he's always said, he's Wednesday's Wednesday. It's like, what are you going to change? He's been around a long time, and he's loved. He brings her back for a reason. But yeah, he gets Blythe's great, and I think it's a relationship that Enrique gets involved in. That the character Shadow comes to see something of his dad, but at the same time, all the other traits that come out of that. Yeah, it was great. It was great doing that. The arc of Blythe, and then my new relationship with the lovely Ashley. Hi, darling. Who's fantastic. But, you know, it started off that I don't think they were planning. I don't know the exact idea, because, you know, they gave me a girl Friday, but she has to be special because nothing happens in this show without a reason. I mean, the random things that happen, that's part of what the show says, I think, in a certain way. And Ashley comes to be more than you think she originally is. All the characters are. Yetide's character, which is, because they don't get to be developed as much in the book as they do here, which is terrific. And Bruce, what can I say about, you know, our man? Yeah.
Ashley, I was gonna come to you next just to ask about Cordelia and how much do you need to understand about her? Because as a viewer, I'm like, there's got to be more to her than what we're seeing in these first episodes. But can you talk about the character and you just joining the show?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to talk about because joining all of these people who have been developing these amazing characters for the past 2 seasons, it was a lot to come into. But you know, Cordelia has no idea that she is anyone to any of these people. She just thinks she's a normal person who is on her way, college dropout, just kind of bumbling through her life and also conning out as many people as she can. And so when she meets Wednesday, it's kind of like a kindred spirit, but she has no idea that she's meant to be there for any sort of reason. So as the season goes along and she realizes that no one is human around her and everything is very confusing and life isn't what it actually is, she has to make a choice between whether she wants to be human or whether she is ready for this whole other world.
Well, and I like that she holds her own against Wednesday. She doesn't seem intimidated by him, really. She kind of gives it back to him a little bit.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's the great thing about their relationship is, you know, she can rattle off as many quotes as he can, and she can point out all of his flaws. But she really cares for him, and I think it's the first time we see someone really care about Wednesday.
I think I found Cordelia is especially helpful for Shadow as a way of seeing Wednesday, but not through his own mouth. You know, Wednesday's always quick to talk about himself, but seeing someone else like Cordelia and like Demeter speak so highly of Wednesday really does it was a fantastic tool of getting into Shadow's head this season. And so he's able to see different perspectives of a father that he doesn't know yet.
That's been great. Yetide, let's talk about Billquiz a little bit. She's always been in control, and she's the one with power. But these last episodes we've been seeing, I'm really worried for her. But can you talk about what she's going through this season and what you're going through as the actor playing her? Because it seems like we're going down a different path than what we've seen before.
Yeah, as I mean, I love that you say she's always in control. I'm not sure she always has been, but it's great that it comes across that way. I mean, I always do like to make the distinction between the first season where she was purely trying to survive, the second season where she started to thrive, and this season where she's starting to find her drive. And we do find her at the beginning, seemingly in that position of control that you mentioned. We see that in the interaction with Technical Boy, even though he comes in wanting to collect on what he believes are debts that she owes. We see her affect him in a certain way. But as we continue on, we see these mirrored experiences, which I think happens with a lot of the different characters in the season, which I find very fascinating. But this mirrored experience where we had seen Technical Boy affected in the first episode, and we go in a few more episodes and we see her affected. And it takes her into some new valleys. She's feeling the walls coming in. She's feeling all the expectations and labels that other individuals are trying to place on her. She's feeling all of that come in, and we see her feel the need to break free, to liberate herself. So even though it's quite worrying right now, and thanks for being worried about that, Jim. And yes, I'm a little worried too. You know, it's funny. I think everybody can say here. I mean, tell me if I'm speaking for y'all. Tell me. But
you're speaking for us all.
Okay, I guess I'm speaking for everybody. But there's this thing that happens, right? I mean, we've been with these characters for how many years now? So I, for one, have so much love for Billquiz. I feel so much for her. And so when I get a script and I see a moment of pain, I mean, it hits hard. And you know, I'm watching some incredible work that's happening with Bruce as Technical Boy, with Emily as Laura Moon, with Omid as Saleem, and obviously, I mean, always Wednesday. Whoops, I got so excited about that.
Back the camera, she's flipping tables.
McShane.
We've lost her.
and Cordelia that's come in, you know, played by the wonderful Ashley Reyes. And I'm feeling so much for them, seeing these journeys that they're having, and I'm assuming you as actors are feeling it as well. And so for myself, when I see these troubling times for Billquiz, or when I get to step in for a moment and play this incredible goddess and experience those valleys, those moments of pain that she's having, you ask how it feels. It hurts, Jem. It hurts. And so what I can say, I guess I can tease, is that that there are then going to be moments where we see what happens on the other side of that. And that's all I'm going to say without spoiling it. And hopefully it's gratifying for everyone involved.
Okay. Well, like Ricky said, I love when characters you don't normally see together get to be together, and when Billquiz is with Technical Boy, it's such a cool dynamic, because you and Bruce, the characters are so different, and what you bring to it is so different. Can you talk about shooting some of that together? Bruce, you jump in, just having these characters kind of, you know, tussle a little bit.
Well, I mean, it's lovely. Here's the thing: the characters should never be in the same room together. They really shouldn't. So that already on paper is wonderful to play with from a writing point of view, because they're automatically at odds. And from there, power dynamics get readdressed pretty quickly. There is so much history and backstory with all of these characters, but particularly the ones that really shouldn't be hanging out, that there's just so much delicious subtext to play with, and it usually ends pretty badly for at least one of them. That always means it's entertaining. I mean, this season I got to hang out with a bunch of people, which was fun, like getting to spend some time with Ricky rather than just in real life as well. That was really fun. That's something that people are going to get to see, you know, relatively in short order. I think it's this Sunday people are going to get to see the first taste of that. It's really fun. It's been, just for me, I've been having a really, really good time doing it, and the writing is strong enough to back that up. So yeah, happy days all round.
Yetide, how was it to work with Bruce in those scenes?
Well, I mean, obviously you can see it's just impossible to work with this guy. I mean, it's incredible to see the difference between Technical Boy and Bruce Langley, and that just speaks to the amount of talent that he has as a performer, because talk about polar opposite. But yeah, getting to see Billquiz and Technical Boy together on the screen, I think is fascinating. And especially this season, because we assume that they're opposite sides of the spectrum. But in this season, we start to see where they may have kind of common ground. And I think that shows up in many of the mirrored experiences that I mentioned that we're going to see them having. And I think it's fun to play with nowadays, the idea of, we've been talking about the old and new gods at war, and how, you know, it seems that these things are oil and water. But the ideas of, you know, can the past and the present possibly combine to create some other kind of future? I think that's a fascinating concept to play with. And again, I'm trying so hard not to get into spoilers. But,
It's all right.
but you asked what was it like to play these scenes. It was not only fascinating, but a joy.
Good. Bruce, how much time do you spend on some of Technical Boy's physical manifestations? And when I know some of it is special effects, but you're also doing a lot of this yourself. Do you spend time in the mirror seeing what works, or do you just let it fly and hope for the best? How do you kind of prepare for those scenes?
Yes. It's all of the above. I mean, it all goes back to character prep and all the rest of that stuff on like a base level. And then in terms of the specifics, you do enough prep so that you can just go in there and dance, and that's basically it. But it doesn't just happen, but it does when you're filming. I don't know. I'm going to start talking acting theory, and no one cares. A lot of prep goes into it, and then you just go in and play, and you get a lot from the people who are doing it with you. I don't know what to say, man. I do a lot of prep.
Just keep doing what you're doing. It's all good.
Cool.
We like it. Emily, I was glad Laura's part of the season, because in the first episode, I was really worried that was the last we were seeing of her. So thankfully she's there. Talk about playing this kind of part of the season, yeah, where she's in purgatory and it's such a weird place, but she's still Laura, which I love. She hasn't cowered and she's still the same character even in purgatory. But can you talk about that and where that's heading us?
Yeah, I think Laura. I mean, Ricky was talking earlier at the beginning of the conversation about like how Shadow this season is able to be kind of more internally focused. And I think that's the same thing for Laura. I think this season, I think we'll see the kind of the biggest emotional journey that she's been on. I think that Laura historically hasn't been a particularly self-aware person. And I think Purgatory first forces her to kind of, to kind of look at herself. And I guess it's not a spoiler anymore because that episode's already aired. But she gets to see her past. And I mean, Laura's an asshole. But I think that she's aware of the fact that she's an asshole. I don't think she has any kind of delusions.
Well, a wonderfly astute and pretty asshole.
Thanks.
Do you remember that on the Larry Sanders Show? She's great.
Yeah, I think she's aware of that, and there's something cool about that, and there's also something really kind of sad about it, because she's sort of like resigned to the fact that this is her lot, and she's going to do the best she can, but she also sort of like, well, the best I can do is, I don't know. She doesn't like herself very much, I don't think. And I think when we have the scene in Purgatory where she sees back into her childhood, and initially she thinks like, everything bad that's ever happened in my life is because of me and it's my fault and I get it and whatever. And she gets to see that that's not necessarily true, that, children are innocent. And like we talked a lot, I mean, I don't want to get too heavy, but I talked a lot with Anne, one of the writers on that episode, about, childhood trauma and how it can mess people up and turn people into assholes. And I didn't want any of those scenes to absolve Laura. We definitely didn't want the audience to be like, oh, now it makes sense and we love her. Like, no, she's still kind of a piece of shit. It was really interesting for me. I don't know. I just think it's interesting it kind of just made her a lot more human, to be like, okay, there's still not necessarily an excuse for all of the crappy things that she's done, but she is like a three-dimensional person who's like in pain, like, hurt people. So just to be incredibly cliche. But yeah, that was, I don't even remember what your question was, but that was, it was interesting for me to just see a more kind of nuanced, like human side of her. And I think it will be interesting to see how that affects her throughout the rest of the season, because she also no longer has the person who she doesn't have Sweeney this season, and that was the person that she could, be always in her like full asshole glory with, and she kind of doesn't have that anymore. And so she has to learn how to interact with other people.
Yeah. Okay.
That was really rambly. You may want to.
No, that was good. I was with you the whole way.
Okay, cool.
Omid, every time we see Saleem on screen, I know I love seeing you on the show, and since season 1 with the Jinn, and we see in the beginning of the season that the Jinn is not around. So can you talk about what's coming next for your character?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so when we see Saleem in episode 2 of this season, you know, he got that letter from the Jinn saying, you know, I got to go do Wednesday's bidding. You should go live your life. Basically, we have no future together. So obviously that, you know, it wrecks Saleem. Like when we see Saleem, he's wrecked at the top of this season. And, you know, when we saw him in season 1, he was in a similar place in the beginning. And it was the Jinn who kind of helped him open his eyes and helped Saleem feel better about himself. But that being said, you know, the Jinn was a crutch for Saleem, and that the relationship he used to feel better about himself, a romantic love, he doesn't have that anymore this season. And so season 3, he's seeking the Jinn. He wants to, you know, if this is how the Jinn really feels, you know, he shouldn't leave it on a piece of paper. You know, he should tell Saleem, you know, in face to face. And so he goes on this quest to find the Jinn again, but this time, you know, he links up with Laura, and the relationship these two have, and the kind of love these two have, which is very different than the romantic love, but is, I think, equally as beautiful and equally as important to have in, you know, in anybody's life. And these two really, like, you know, they are missing their other halves, and they're able to, you know, not complete each other, but complement each other and help each other grow. And Saleem, it was Saleem, and then it was Saleem, not Saleem. And so the journey is he going to be Saleem, like, again, like, is he going to be a whole Saleem? And you know, that's for the viewers to see. But I gotta embarrass Emily, but like, the love you see like Saleem have for Laura is just, it's not acting. I have so much love for her, and and the greatest compliment you can give another actor is thank you for making my job so easy, because it's such a joy to act in. And anyways, I'm rambling. Go, hi. On to you.
I feel like I should jump in now and say I feel exactly the same. We got, I mean, what was it, 1 or 2 episodes that we're together? I can't even remember now, but I think
it feels like the entire, maybe it is the entire season for me, but like, yeah, it's like a couple, it's like 2 or 3 episodes.
Yeah. But we had some, there are some scenes where some emotions come out of Laura that I don't think any other character could have brought out except for Saleem, because they could not be more different as people. And yet for some reason, they just care about each other. And it's one of the few people that Laura actually cares about. And yeah, I feel the same way. There were a couple scenes that Omid and I got to do where it was like, I had to really pull back my own emotion, because it was like, okay, even Laura doesn't have this much feeling, but like I have so much love for Omid that it was just like, yeah, those scenes. I'm really excited to see. I haven't watched those scenes yet, but hopefully it'll be cool for the audience to see that kind of like.
I have. They're amazing.
but totally, that's what it was like. Like I was like, you know, we had this one scene where, and I'm not a crier. You know, but like
that's a lie.
No, I'm like, if I have to cry in a scene, or if it'd be nice to cry, I'd be like, listen, I'll give you one take and then I won't cry again for 6 months. But we had this one scene where I'm like just in tears, and I'm like, this is not a choice. You know, this is not my choice. I don't mean to do this. Like,
that's awesome.
On a choice. I love it.
I love it. I don't know if anybody can answer this. Is there an opportunity for all of you to be in the same scene together this season? Does that happen? Can you say, or is that a spoiler? I don't know.
No. Otherwise, we'd all be blowing smoke up each other's ass forever. You know.
There is episode, for me, that episode 5 is as far as I know, the only episode where we're all in. which is great fun. And it's all, like I said before, it's different dynamics that the audience hasn't seen before. So, you know, you have your Shadow and Tech Boy, and then you have Shadow Tech Boy Billquiz and Shadow. You have Laura and Saleem, and you have Wednesday and Cordelia. Then you have Cordelia and Shadow and Wednesday. And Wednesday, like, I nearly went into spoilers then, but I won't say anything. But it's just a lot of fun to see everyone together, but it doesn't feel cluttered. You know, you're following the story and you're invested in it, and it's just a lot of fun to see these new relationship dynamics and how they move forward. But going back to before, Omid, I have seen those episodes, and the dynamic between Laura and Saleem is hilarious. It's one of those. It's a dynamic that makes me smile when they're on screen, because they're dealing with so much stuff, projecting it all onto the other person. When it's one of those cases where do as I say, not as I do. It's a lot of fun to watch.
Okay, I can't wait. I'd be remiss without bringing up our friend Cloris Leachman, who passed this week, and she was a big part of the show the first 2 seasons, even this season a little bit. Anybody wanted to share some stories about Cloris? And Ian, you raised your hand. You get to go first. How was it to work with Cloris?
What a woman.
Yeah.
We had to kiss, as you remember, which wasn't exactly a hardship. You know, she was a very incredibly alive, eccentric, wonderful actress. And we sort of tentatively went over it. I kissed her, and she, not too slowly, said, "Is that it?" She said, "No tongues." I said, "Cloris, please, I'm sorry." And she said, "And could you clean your teeth the next time before you kiss me?" I mean, it's a total joker the entire time, right, Rick? You never knew what she was going to say, something, or was that be insulting? I mean, but the woman was, you know, her resume speaks for itself. Yeah. And my love goes out to her daughter, who was with her the whole time on the shoot, both times. And she was an absolute delight. She'll be missed.
She was. I mean, I remember we actually celebrated her 90th birthday on set at about, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And she's still all jokes, cracking like crude, terrible jokes, smiles. She was just full of light and love and energy. And I, being from
an incredibly dirty sense of humor. I mean, that's what, and
yes,
wonderful.
She was.
I mean, and it was
so
hilarious. Because that's what she was relentless. It's not like it stopped. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't like that was joking. It was part of her persona, which is attractive in any human being,
Yeah, it was a fantastic time, and a gift that I take to my heart, because I wasn't aware of Cloris that much in the UK, and it wasn't until I came to America, and then obviously getting to work with her, you realize, as Ian said, that the resume, the volume of work, and the talent that she had, and the people and the stories, and there's no one in the industry that hasn't got a story about her and her achievements and things. She's an incredible woman that was full of, like I say, smiles, light, and love. And I just am grateful that I was able to spend even just a second with that beautiful woman.
When you did scenes with her, did she stick to the script, or did she kind of go where she wanted to go?
I used to say because most of my, I have most of the stuff with her, and I used to say that whatever director was, I said, just let Cloris go. Let us, I'll react to her, because that's what it is. I mean, she's, I'll just deal with it. Let the two of us just get in there and do it together. And she moves, because, and she did the first one. She just recovered from a broken heel. So I said, you're not thinking of making a walk very far, are you, sir? Whatever. At the times, but it all worked out well, and she was great. This time when she'd look at you, and every actor that when I'd look at her, and every actor had that glassy feeling, is looking at the other person's eyes and thinking, what the fuck comes next? That's great too when you're an actor, because you both look at each other and something does come out of it, because you never know. It's the beauty of. That's an acting tip, Bruce, because you never know what comes out. All the acting techniques in the world won't help you. Moments, when you suddenly, and something magic can come out of it. And being, whatever she was then, 91, and having a career, and she was just great. She was great.
Wow. Ian, last question, really, was it the first time you'd worked with her, or even met her, or had you met her over the years?
No, I'd met her previously, because Marty Feldman was a close friend of mine. I think I'd met Cloris about 40 years ago, because they worked together on Young Frankenstein and all that. But no, I mean, briefly at some party at Marty's, but no, but I mean, it's kind of nice, it's kind of great when you get something like that, the legend of the business, and lives up to it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing those thoughts with me. And thank you for being here today to talk about American Gods with the SAG-AFTRA Foundation. You guys, American Gods drops a new episode every Sunday night, and this season's on fire, so I can't wait to see what comes next. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.